The new legend perk system has added so many new layers to the gameplay of Apex. So in this video, I want to go over my favorite upgrades for each legend, but also discuss why you might want to use certain upgrades over others. Let's get into it. All right, now starting off with the controller legends. And listen, some of these controller legends have upgrades that really compete with one another. So it's tough to say exactly which is the best on each of them, but let's get into it. On Caustic, you can either throw his tactical 75% further, which trust me, you can chuck these things, or you get a 50% increase to his ultimate. Now I'll tell you this, if I get the level 2 upgrade pretty early within the match, I'll probably go with the increase in the tactical range, just because I know I won't have my ultimate yet, at least for another minute or two. However, if I get the level 2 upgrade and I'm not in a fight, then I will go with the particle diffuser so that I have a better ultimate when I do get into my first fight. Now on the level 3 upgrade, they're both kind of mid, honestly. Like, they sound better than what they are, and after playing a bunch of Caustic so far, I could say that sometimes I alternate, but neither one is really like, oh, I absolutely got to pick this one. Getting the regen inside the Nox gas will slowly heal you up, but keep in mind your shields have to be broken and some of your health already has to be hit. This does work whether it's his gas trap or his ultimate gas though, so that's a plus, but this also applies to his Nox vision. Getting a little bit clearer vision against enemies, this can be beneficial. However, at times the Nox vision doesn't always work perfectly, so for this I'm kind of torn on. You could go either way. On Wattson, she has actually some pretty interesting upgrades. I feel like they put the most amount of thought and effort into at least a couple of these. On her level 2 upgrades, I would probably go with Falling Stars, where the pylon interception will spawn arc stars. Now there's some caveats to this, but it feels overall just a little bit better than her fresh start revive. This is definitely helpful, but Wattson isn't typically known as the medic or the person on the field getting the most revives. So while it is certainly good, I feel like having the ult out, getting those extra grenades can be way more valuable, especially as you move towards end game. And on her level 3 upgrade, you can either have one ult that has double the HP and double the shield regen capacity, or get 2 ults and also increase the ultimate accelerant speed. Personally, for me, I've been going with Power Pylon. I think that one of the weak spots of the ultimate is having a low HP and a slow shield regen, so boosting both of those feels like the best option. But Split Circuit isn't bad. You could definitely go with that, especially if you're holding a large room or some sort of area that it just makes more sense to have 2 pylons down at once. Rampart also has some pretty good upgrades. On her first, you can either reduce her cooldown on her ultimate by 30 seconds or carry extra ammo per stack. I'm always going with the reduction to the ultimate cooldown. Being able to have Sheila early on within a match is really strong and could definitely help you out way more than just carrying extra ammo. On her level 3 upgrades, once again, you could kind of go either way here. I found them both to be good, and I haven't really landed on which one I'd always go with, but you can increase Sheila's handling and spin up time, which is huge. This is usually the biggest weak spot for Sheila. It's that spin up time. If a player can get the draw on you before you're ripping with her ultimate, you might die. So improving that is definitely worthwhile, but you also could go with the faster reload with Sheila and behind amp cover. Remember, this applies to your weapons when you're behind amp cover, not just her ultimate. And this is like the sleight of hand perk from COD. You get a really fast reload. And honestly, it's really strong and I like it. So you could go either way here. Catalyst upgrades are kind of mid. I don't really like them, but if you've been playing this past year, you'll know that all of these perks basically bring her back to a former version of herself. Now on her level 2 upgrades, you can get an extra spike so that she'd have a total of 3, or you can be able to throw the spike further by 40%. I'm always going to go with sister spikes so that I have an extra spike. Having more is just better. On her level 3 upgrade, they're both pretty bad. Increasing the lifetime of the ult by 5 seconds doesn't feel as meaningful as increasing the length of it, but this will really come down to what you're using the wall for. If you're in a bad spot and you just need to use the wall to buy some time to heal, maybe you want that 5 extra seconds. However, if you're using it to rotate, to get out of a dicey situation, get into a safe building, you're probably going to want to increase the length on her ultimate. But I do feel like with the controller legends, all of the perks really compete with one another more so than some of the other legend classes. All right, now moving on to the assault legends, and first up we have Bangalore. On her level 2 upgrades, you're always going to want to go with the ultimate cooldown reduction. You know, subtracting a minute to her ult's cooldown is huge, and I believe it brings her back in line to where she was, I think 2 seasons ago when they increased her ult's cooldown. I can't see one reason why you'd want to go with Big Bang. It seems rather useless on Bangalore and rather just a useless perk overall. On her level 3 upgrade though, you're going to have more of a tough decision to make. The refuge is definitely helpful at times, but keep in mind this is similar to Caustic, so it's only going to regen you about 50 HP and that will be slowly ticking up over time. So let's say you're in some combat, you get cracked and your health gets low, you pop a smoke, you start hitting the battery, well then this perk will definitely help you out because you're going to be healing both at the same same time, right? Your health is going to be passively regenerating while you're popping the shield battery, which means you can tag back into the fight much sooner. But what's probably going to be more widely applicable is this Cover Me perk, where auto pings will go onto enemies who trigger Bangalore's passive. And remember, this ping will be sort of a live ping for not only Bangalore, but her teammates as well. And this can be really helpful during fights. So on her level 3, it'll really come down to what you value more. And that's just how some of these legends are right now. There are certain perks that are just flat out better than the other one, but then on some of them, both can actually be pretty good options. And it really just comes down to what the player values more and maybe what situations they seem to find themselves in more often. Moving on to Fuse, on his level 2 upgrades, I would always go with Scar Tissue. Big Bang is a little bit more viable for Fuse so that you could see more grenades so that you're able to pick them up. But listen, on Scar Tissue, you're going to ignore the slow and 50% damage reduction from going through your own ultimate, which can be really helpful, especially if you get someone in that ultimate and you need to capitalize on knocking them, or just capitalize on that little bit of time while they're surrounded by that fire and maybe you don't have any knuckle clusters or grenades to throw and you just got to close the gap and get to them. I think Scar Tissue is 100% just a better upgrade. Now on his level 3 upgrade, I would probably go with Knuckle Hustler. Getting that speed boost on a knuckle cluster hit gives Fuse some sort of movement or mobility, if you will, and that just feels like way more valuable than Reckless, where you take 25% less explosive damage. I kind of wish Fuse had some better perks. They aren't the worst in the world at all, don't get me wrong, but some of them are kind of weak. On Ash's level 2 upgrades, I would probably go with Murder Machine more than I would go with 1 Minute to Live. The reason being is that Ash's passive isn't something that applies every single time, because if you come across some death boxes and those players who killed the players of the death box you're looking at are already eliminated, you're not going to get any information out of that. Whereas if you have selected Murder Machine, Ash is going to call out nearby squads within 150 meter range. And I just think that's a little bit more consistent and a little bit more valuable to know if you're in any immediate danger. On her level 3 upgrades, I saw a lot of people say the Greedy Snare is better, but I actually disagree. I have been taking the twin snares, and this is ultimately just a personal preference. I value having 2 of them more than I value just having one long one. Players can still get out of this Greedy Snare. It's not like if they get snared, they're stuck for that whole like 24-second duration of how long the snare lasts. But it could come more in handy in like a late game scenario or where you need to deny a larger amount of area. So I see the case for both, but personally I go with twin snares. Okay, 4th in the assault class, we have Mad Maggie, and Maggie has some of the best upgrades in my opinion. On her level 2 upgrades, you can decide if you want to auto reload your shotgun on Nox, which I believe only reloads like 1 shell, or you can go with the fireball. I will always go with the fireball. This is really chaotic. The fireball consists of Maggie's ball being on fire, but also when it explodes, it's going to do a crisscross of thermites. So 2 thermites in an explosion. Not to mention they have adjusted the Wrecking Ball this season to be a little bit more consistent and so that it can actually bounce and hit 2 players now. The ball is still rather inconsistent at times and can do some funky things, but it's definitely a little bit better, but it's much better when it's on fire. On her level 3 upgrades, I can honestly say both are good options. I can't tell you exactly which one is the best. It will depend on what situation you think you're going to find yourself in more often. The Drill Slinger, you get 2, but they're not going to last as long. And the Big Drill is obviously just bigger. It's going to go through more of a surface area to get through the other side. And it can wind up burning more than just one player. So if you know a team is camped into a building, you're in a late game scenario, the Big Drill might be better, but they're both great options. And they both amplify her drill regardless. Lastly, in the assault class, we have Ballistic. Ballistic's first upgrades are really disappointing. I feel like there's a lot more room to be creative here. But regardless, you can either reveal a care package insight, which will add 50 points to you and your team's Evo armor, or you can see the relevant ammo types in the death boxes around you. So it'll be whatever ammo you're carrying. You'll be able to see that transparently through the box. It's not really that good. I think you could go either way here depending on what you think's more important. On the level 3 upgrade, this is where things are a bit better, but not amazing. You can either have 2 tacticals or a tactical that lasts 3 times as long, similar to Ash's abilities. I've been going with Extra Bullet, but I could see Lasting Bullet being a menace to deal with if you connect. The reason I've been going with 2 of them is because it just gives me a greater chance to affect either more players per fight, or if I miss on that first one for some odd reason, because sometimes this thing can be a little wonky, at least I have a backup tactical ready to go. But as I said, Ballistics upgrades really could use some love here. There's a lot more room to be creative and a lot more ways to just make him better. So I hope they do that in the future. Moving on to the Skirmisher class, starting off Pathfinder. His level 2 upgrades are not that good. If it were me, I would probably go with whichever thing I'm closer to when I get the level 2 upgrade. So either that ring console or the survey beacon. Now the survey beacon's gonna let you know where people are at, but the ring console will give you that ring knowledge. That might be more viable in a ranked game. The survey beacon might be more applicable for a pub match if you're just looking to find some fights and some action. However, on the level 3 upgrade, I think most players are going to go with down and away, where you'll get the grapple back after you knock someone. Zipline Zen didn't seem that good to me when I tried it. I don't necessarily know why you would want to go with that, especially when you're competing against getting a free tactical after a knock. So down and away seems like the clear winner here. Next is Wraith, and on Wraith's upgrades, you actually have some great options. Both of these upgrades are going to be a personal preference. I'll just start with that. I've done all of them, and I can say that I've found value with choosing each one. The Sixth Sense is basically Ash's and Revenant's passive, where it'll alert you if people are nearby, but the difference here is that it doesn't occur after you get a squad wipe. So there's an argument to be made that Wraith's passive just isn't that good or not that consistent. However, Apex has been trying to adjust this in the past 2 seasons and make it better, but I bet most players will go with the reduction of the tactical cooldown. Now on our level 3 upgrade, you can decide if you want a faster tactical windup speed or reducing your ultimate by 60 seconds. I think the reduction of the ultimate cooldown is better if you're playing with a team. If you're like full on solo queuing or your teammates have already died and left, you might value the fast phase more so than the reduction of the ultimate cooldown. But if you're playing like rank, I would always go with the ultimate cooldown here so that you just have it more often. You're able to rotate, get in and out of situations more often. But honestly, I really like Wraith's upgrades this season. Next is Octane, and I will always go with Thick Skin. Taking 25% less stim damage means you're only going to take 15 damage every time you stim. Some people have said, well, Reckless is pretty good. You know, you're going to take 25% less explosive damage. And I'm just like, that doesn't really seem that good to me. And it also just doesn't seem like it would occur as much as reducing the damage from your stim would. So for that reason, I'll always go with Thick Skin. On his level 3 upgrades, I think this will depend on your input, really. I've been enjoying Airborne Agility a ton because you basically get a tap strafe on his jump pad. Now, this is only for Octane himself. It doesn't apply to his teammates. Of course, if your teammates play on mouse and keyboard and can already tap strafe, then Airborne Agility doesn't really matter. And that's why if you're playing on mouse and keyboard and can already tap strafe, you're probably going with Mad Hops so that you get 2 ultimate jump pads. So this one will probably come down to experience, input, and just preference overall. But I definitely think that Thick Skin is the better upgrade in the level 2 one. Next is Revenant, and Revenant's upgrades are decent. He's already a really strong legend, so I was surprised that they didn't make them, worse than this. But for the level 2 upgrade, I've been going with a reduction of the tactical cooldown. However, Murder Machine could be helpful for you and your squad. It is that same perk that Ash has, which we'll call it the nearby squad, after you squad wipe someone. This is a verbal thing and should also show in the kill feed. On the level 3 upgrade, typically I've been going with Agile Assassin just because I feel like sometimes if I'm in a pinch, getting that full charge on his tactical takes a little too long. So reducing that can be helpful. But Grim Leaper is viable too. You can get that tactical refresh on a knock, so whether you down someone and you need to pounce back to safety or pounce on the second enemy because you're still healthy, this is a viable pick if you'd like it. I believe when Revenant Reborn was first released, the tactical refresh on a knock was a thing with his ultimate, and then I think they did away with it after they nerfed him like halfway through or the next season. But either way, these are some pretty good upgrades to choose from. Next is Horizon, and it's pretty straightforward here. Horizon didn't get great upgrades because she's already a really strong pick, and I think Apex was a little afraid of making these upgrades too good and having her re-emerge fully into the meta and just having OP Horizon all over again. So on her first upgrades, well, they're both pretty bad. You can choose if you want to see batteries or grenades. Don't really see the value in either. I probably will go with battery collection though, but it's really up to you. On her level 3 upgrades, they're a little bit better, but remember, Horizon's tactical did get nerfed this season. It now has a 25-second cooldown. So if you go with the tactical cooldown perk, you're basically bringing it back in line to what it was last season on this 20-second cooldown. And if you want to reduce the ultimate's cooldown, well, 30 seconds is more significant, but you're going to be using the ultimate much less overall than you will be her tactical. So for me, I could see a case for going either way, but more likely I've been going with the tactical cooldown just because I know I'll be using it more. And lastly, in the Skirmisher class, we have Valkyrie. Valkyrie's upgrades are actually really good. For her level 2 upgrade, you can either go 50% higher with her ultimate, or you can improve the jetpack handling. Now, I'll say this, if I'm playing with my ranked squad and I'm using Valkyrie specifically for that macro rotational tool, I will go with Afterburners. But if I'm playing pubs or I'm solo queuing ranked, ranked, I might just go with Aerial Expert so that I have more viability with my passive. These are the type of things you're really going to want to consider with Valkyrie here. Both can be viable, but it really will come down to what role you're fulfilling on the team. On her level 3 upgrades, I think it's much more straightforward. I'm always going to go with full tank. A 25% increase in jetpack fuel is a lot more valuable to me than changing around the missile swarm and just making it wider. I don't really care about that, and her tactical isn't all that special to begin with. Like, it can be a little bit of an add-on in a fight, but it's never moving the mark in any significant way. So having more fuel feels like a no-brainer pick for me. Moving into the Recon class, first up is Bloodhound. Bloodhound's perks are pretty good. You can decide if you want to reduce their tactical cooldown by 5 seconds, similar to Wraiths and Horizons, or you can go with Raven's Blessing, which every time you interact with a White Raven, you'll get a 25% boost to your ultimate. Now, keep in mind, this is what Bloodhound used to do normally without any perk upgrades. Every time you scanned or walked up and interacted with a White Raven, you'd get that 25% increase to the ult. Now it's locked behind this perk upgrade, so I think a lot of people are going to go with Raven's Blessing just so that they can have the ultimate way more often. On the level 3 upgrade, I definitely think Odin's Glare is better because of the fact that you get a longer scan, and I think that just provides a little bit more info for you and your team as opposed to Taste of Blood, which will give you 25 HP on a knock when you're in your ult. If you're already low on HP and you're in your ult and you get a knock, I don't really see this perk moving the mark too much. There could be some niche moments where it would be really helpful, but overall I think Odin's Glare is just going to be more widely used and widely applicable, so I'm going with that. Next is Crypto, and on his level 2 upgrades, you can either reduce his tactical cooldown by 10 seconds or you can reduce his ultimate's cooldown by 30 seconds, and I think the ultimate cooldown reduction is better. That way you have more EMPs throughout the match. The tactical cooldown should already be something that was integrated into the game. I don't believe the cooldown on it is fair for Crypto. It needs to be reduced, but I don't like that it's behind this perk. On his level 3 upgrades, I think network expansion is just far better than network traffic, where having Crypto's drone out will call out the nearby squads without Crypto having to go into the drone to then ping the banner. Now, there's no doubt network traffic is viable, but I would have liked to see this be one of his level 2 upgrades and not have it compete against the network expansion upgrade. However you want to slice it though, all of these upgrades do make Crypto a little bit better, but I'm just not sure by how much. Also in Recon, we have Seer. Now, I said in my tier list that Seer got way better this season due to his perks, and a lot of people disagreed. On his level 2 upgrade, you can increase his passive and tactical range by 25 meters, or you can have a faster movement using his passive, so when you have your hands out, you're waving them around. You're able to walk a little bit faster. Keep in mind they did add a setting this season where you can adjust the ADS sensitivity strictly for Seer's passive. So if you haven't tried that, you may want to adjust that. Now on this level 2, you could go either way. For me, I've been going with the long view. I feel like that just applies a little bit more to both of the abilities, and that's where I like it. On the level 3 upgrade, I will typically go with the focus scan. Having a 1.5 second increase to his scan duration feels much more impactful than just getting a 20-meter increase in his ult's throw range. I don't typically need to chuck his ult from too far away to have it be successful, so the focus scan feels like the better pick here. And lastly, in the Recon class, we have Vantage. Our level 2 upgrades are honestly kind of mid. Gaining access to the ring console doesn't seem that strong to me, but I guess it could come in handy for ranked if you didn't have a controller legend on your team or another legend that could upgrade to this. However, if you do use an ultimate accelerant and you are starting with 0 bullets, basically now an ultimate accelerant will give her 4 bullets, and that is definitely better than before, but I just don't think it's that good overall. On our level 3 upgrades, I've typically been going with Bat Bounce to improve the tactical double jump. This means you can go a little bit further with it, and I think that escaping or reaching high ground with this becomes much better, but you could also go with Sharpshooter so that her tactical refreshes on hits with her ult. Remember, this is just a hit. It doesn't have to be a down or a full kill, so that definitely could come in handy, especially if you are entry fragging or playing as a solo and trying to wipe out squads. Okay, now moving into the support class, and first up is Gibraltar. On his level 2 upgrades, I'm going with Fresh Start so that I revive my allies with 50 HP. This is the same as Watson's upgrade, but with Gibby's bubble, I think it complements his tactical a little bit better. You could go with the auto reload on shotguns if you get a knock, but as I said before, I don't think this is that strong. On his level 3 upgrades, I've been going with Baby Bubble so that I get a smaller tactical but a faster cooldown. You can tell I'm a big fan of more and more often as opposed to one big something. This feels like I just have more opportunity to use it, and in a game like Apex, it just feels more impactful to have more of something whenever I can. Keep in mind, this smaller bubble still can have your whole team in it, so while it is smaller, it's not like super small or anything. Next is Lifeline, and on our first upgrades, you could either get a 20% increase in your revive speed or subtract 10 seconds to her tactical's cooldown. I think rapid response is the better one, but if your teammates have already died and quit on you, then you're definitely going to want to go with the reduction in the tactical's cooldown. On our level 3 upgrades, you've got some pretty good options here. At first, I thought the self revive was going to be really strong, but it seems like a lot of players are just too smart these days to let this get pulled off successfully, so I feel like gift wrap is the better option in the broad amount of scenarios. However, keep in mind, this is only for one of her care packages, so it's not every subsequent care package once you get this upgrade that it will include a supply drop weapon. It's only one of them, but it obviously still makes it better. Next is Mirage, and I gotta say Mirage has some of the coolest upgrades this season. You can obviously choose Miracle Worker if you want to get your allies revived with a regenerating health, but the better option is More Me. You get an extra decoy in the ult, and then it reduces his ultimate's cooldown by 30 seconds, which means his ultimate is then on only a 30-second cooldown. You will get his ultimate in basically every single fight, if not multiple times a fight. This is flat out chaotic. It's tough to deal with. You're going to still bamboozle some of the best players if you do it right, and that's mostly due to the audio that is included with these decoys. Also, keep in mind, halfway through last season, they did make some slight changes to his decoys to make them a little bit better, and that has also had a positive impact on Mirage as well. In his level 3 upgrades, you can either get the bamboozle bonus, which will refresh his tactical every time someone shoots at it, which is good, or you can get 2 tacticals. You really can't go wrong here. Either one is solid. I found myself picking the double tactical, but I gotta say they're both really good options. And honestly, I rated Mirage in A tier in my tier lists, and I stand by that. He's a really strong legend now. His role is a little bit of a hybrid. You still get the supportive aspects that Mirage has from being in this class, but he can also serve as sort of an entry fragger with a lot of the chaos that follows his abilities. So if you haven't, definitely try out Mirage this season. Next in the support class is Loba, and she has some awesome upgrades too. You can either increase her tactical height and range or increase her black market by 25%. Now, if you know me, I'm going with the high value always because I love the increase to her tactical height and range. This actually makes it go really, really far now, and you're able to cover a ton of ground. Yes, the market expansion is good, but I don't think it's nearly as good as increasing her tactical. On her level 3 upgrades, you can reduce her tactical cooldown by 5 seconds, or Loba can take an extra item from her black market. Both of these upgrades are good. I'll probably go with Shopping Spree though, just so that I've got a buff to her tactical and her ultimate, but certainly this will come down to what you value more and use your discretion here. Both can be good upgrades, and that's also why I rated Loba in the higher tiers this season. Second to last in the support class is Newcastle. On his level 2 upgrades, you can increase his mobile shield's health by 250 points, or you can increase the speed of the mobile shield so that it basically moves at the speed in which you run. I can't say for sure which one is better here. I've tried them both. There's no doubt these are upgrades to his tactical, and there's probably a case to be made for both of them, so I'm honestly not gonna pick one. You guys comment below which one you think is better. On his level 3 upgrade, I think his Miracle Worker perk is better. Reviving allies with the HP regen seems to be more in line with Newcastle's kit as opposed to the Stronghold, which will increase his castle wall's HP and increase the energized duration to about 2 minutes. This is definitely still strong, but Newcastle is generally picked because of his special revive animation. So anything that plays into helping the revive be more successful, I think is what you got to go with here. Lastly, in the support class, we have Conduit, and on her level 2 upgrades, they aren't great, but Conduit did release really strong, and they did nerf her slightly this season. However, it hasn't moved the mark too much. I'm always going to go with Bigger Jam, get a 10% radius increase to my ult. This just makes her ult a little bit better. I don't see a reason why you'd want to take the battery collection where you could see the battery count on death boxes over increasing her ult's radius, but that's just me. And on her level 3 upgrades, you can either increase her tactical by 1, however, it will then have a half shield regen duration, or you can increase the tactical's range by 10 meters. For me, I'm always going with split charge. I want that extra tactical so that I can not only heal myself more, but so that I can heal both of my teammates if needed. As most of you know, her tactical is really, really strong, especially for in the middle of combat. So having more of this just makes her that much better this season. And I think Conduit is an S tier pick for sure. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn all about the best and worst weapons this season, well, I covered it all in this video here. Thank you so much for watching. watching. Peace.